purposes. And we're very happy that you could all make it today. And we would especially like to thank all of our industry sponsors who provide projects. Especially this one here is, I believe, from Vectren. And I'd like to introduce Bryan Garst and James Payne.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today for our senior presentation. Like I said, my name is James Payne, and my partner's name is Bryan Garst. Our senior project was based for substation online training modules for Vectren Corporation. Our affiliated group is, of course, Vectren Corporation. Larry Rogers was our liaison, and our student advisor was Paul Benjamin. Today we'll be covering, this is our project outline, we'll be covering a project summary, project purpose, electrical substation overview, project requirements, module topics, module design, module example, and testing results, economic considerations, and recommendations for further reports. Project summary. This is for Vectren. Vectren is a utility corporation that distributes electricity and natural gas to business and residential customers in 2/3 of the state of Indiana and Ohio. This is a map. The headquarters currently is in Evansville, Indiana. As you can see, all parts of Ohio and Indiana they cover. Project purpose. The purpose of our project was to create online training modules that will be used to standardize work and count as continuing education credits. The Vectren Substation online training modules are aimed to design and implement interactive online training modules using Microsoft PowerPoint. The desired focus of this, of course, like I said, is to standardize work and for building and modifying, standardized work for building and modifying substations.
We would like to do a quick overview of what an electrical substation is before we get started. That way you'll have an idea of what the testing modules were about. Vectren Corporation utilizes two different types of substations: transmission for transmitting voltages of 69 kV and above, and distribution substations for distributing electricity and power to the end user. Transmission and distribution substations are made of similar types of equipment. These equipments only usually vary by the amount of power each type of equipment can handle. Common pieces of equipment that can be found in a substation are capacitor banks, control houses, grounding grids, metering equipment, switch gears, transformers, and voltage regulators. The project requirements for this senior project were set forth by Vectren and backed by the research that we done to provide a good training module. The standards were to use Microsoft PowerPoint to create the training module. They should last between 15 minutes and 45 minutes long. They should be able to be easily updated as standards do change throughout the years. Questioning should be provided throughout the training module. That way the trainee doesn't just sit there and click all the way through without actually reading the information. There's actually something there to stop them, to make them look at it. The design was to be simple, not to take away from the actual information. That way the reader could actually keep focus on the information that's being presented to them. These are the 14 test module topics that were given to us, and due to the time and the amount of information that's available for each topic, 5 topics were chosen. As you can see here, these topics were chosen mostly for the priority and higher need for the trainees to be tested over. The reference material for this design was given to us by Vectren. This includes several design standard handbooks, several PDFs, and several CAD drawings that were provided by Vectren that show how their standards are being used.
the module design, this is actually, our research is based off the book PowerPoint for Teachers. And from the research, we found that there are certain aspects that need to be covered in doing an online training module. The first one is going to be module breakdown. The second one is the background. Third is color scheme, and then the font size. Sorry. The module breakdown. Typically, this is our flow diagram for how a typical training module, online training module will flow. You would start, you would gather information, there would be examples, if available or if needed, and then there would be questioning, and from the question they would have a solution, and if there's more information to be gathered or to be provided, then they'll go back and they'll return and do the same process again. For each section, they'll have questioning. Now, this consists of having appropriate like subcategories in between each one, so you can break it up and carry on with questioning. Instead of doing one question per section, you can do per subsection and carry on for the basis of what's important, what's not. The project background, as you can see, there's the one on the left, the far left, that was one previously used or currently used by Vector, and they provided for us. As you can see, it's simple, the colors are kind of duller, they have just white, and then you can see all the text. The one we found that we're going to use, and this is what we created, we used the background that had that would use grounding aspects, or just for say the grounding, that would use an image or something that's related to the topic. For instance, it's grounding. The white space on ours that's on the bottom, we try to point it for everybody. What did I do this time? There we go. On the bottom there, and on this side there, that's used to show which section you're in and which subsection you will be in. So as you go through, you know where you are at all times. And of course, according to where we are for our background color scheme, which is our next one, you'll see that this is another one for Control House. It is actually the dull colors, because most of the audience are the trainees that will be using the training modules, online training modules, will be an adult audience. So the duller colors are more appropriate than that of a bright color scheme. For kids or younger crowd, they're typically want the brighter so you get their attention more. But for the adults, from our research, they want duller colors. The font size. Typical font size, so for your typical information that's gathered here, it should be no less than 18 point. And then the title part of that should be a lot larger than that so they can see what part they're on. And as you can see at the bottom, this is what I was talking about, where it shows you which part you're in for the section. And it should be about 18 point as well, or a little bit larger. This is an example module. This just provides some information. As you can see, we provided a picture of the related topic. And then at the bottom in red shows the important key word or even a definition of the word. Now, for everyone sitting out there, I know you're thinking, red's really hard to see on this board. We understand that. But most people that are going to be taking these training modules are on an individual computer by themselves. Most of the time, these are not going to be presented from our research, presented to a big crowd like this. So you could see it in an individual computer. This is another example. This shows like a correct and not correct approach on connecting ground wires, just to give you a background. As you can see, we have a picture of what's not correct, and it's shown at the top, it says not correct. And then on the other one is green, and it says correct. And it gives you pinpoints as well. It shows you why it's supposed to be this way. This is a definition page, what I like to call it, and the key word is underlined, as I said, and then you can see underneath it is what it represents or what it means. At the bottom, you'll see the italicized words, and what those are, this is information it's good to know, but it's not something that you have to know. It just gives additional background information on it. This is an example of questioning. So as you can see, the questions at top, and then you have 4 choices, so all multiple choice questions. Each of the question answers are hyperlinked, which means when you click on it, it's going to take you to either correct or not correct answer. As you can see on the next slide. So if I clicked the wrong answer here, it'll take me here, and it'll say your answer is incorrect, and then it has a reference box. If I click on the red box on both sides, as you can see, whoop, I clicked too much, there, this will take me to a reference page. The reference page, because it's hyperlinked as well, will show you here. This actually gives you where we got it from, which book or standardized manual it came from, which page, and how we found it. So when you push try again, it takes you back to the question. If I click the right answer, it shows your answer is correct at the top, big, bold. And then it also gives the reference page and why the answer is correct. So this allows, you also have the reference to look and refer to if you want additional information. Now this is testing results. This was based off the timing, but due to the time from what Bryan told you earlier, that it needs to be in between 15 and 45 minutes long. So we took 4 test subjects, random test subjects, and we had them take it. 2 of the test subjects took 3 of the training modules. The other 2 took 2 of the training modules. And we took the time. Now each one of these times that are given are rounded to the nearest minute. So they didn't go exactly 59 minutes. It was rounding up. However, now one of the test subjects had no background in engineering whatsoever. So their time was a little bit higher than the rest, which is expected. But the other ones were pretty key on. As you can see, that most of them fit in between the 15 and 45 minute time.
There were some economic considerations for this project. If it was to actually be financed, it would be the current budget, the amount of budget that would need to be to complete this project, and then a total budget for all 14 test modules to be created. In this budget table, you can see what it would take to create 5 test modules, the financing and time that is needed for 1, advising faculty, and 2, students working on this. You can see the amount of time and the rates that would be charged if this was financed. And based on the time and financing that was needed for 5 test modules, you can see here in this table, we calculated how much time and financing would also be needed to complete the remaining 9 topics. And in this table here, it represents a combined total time and financing that would need to be implemented for the entire 14 module package.
Recommendation for completion. So relating to the budget and the total budget and what would be needed to finish, as we said, we did 5 training modules and it took us this whole semester. And since there's 9 remaining, we actually recommend that we add a 3rd team member. This will aid in gathering more information. There was a lot of manuals and booklets, drawings, everything that we had to go through, sort to come up with all the information. So adding a 3rd team member will allow us to be able to accomplish more, give you more training modules, more slides, probably a lot more information. So when doing that, allowance of this team member will be a lot more effective for future considerations. We would like to thank everyone that came today. Especially like to thank Dr. David Schultz for introducing us to this project, Dr. Paul Cuban for stepping in and helping us and guiding us through the remaining of the semester. I'd like to thank Larry Rogers and the Veteran Corporation for all the information and for providing us everything we need for this project. I'd also like to thank Ms. Donna Moore, always having the right answers when no one else did, keeping us updated with everything we need to know, always making sure we had things done. If we didn't, she come and found you. It's pretty awesome for that. We also like to thank the entire USI Engineering Department. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and we'd like to thank you for that. And we'd like to thank our families for whom they put up with us. All the stressing, all the bad attitudes from coming home from a bad test, it was them. So, any questions?
Yeah, could you guys talk to us about the 5 modules that you were decided to work on and why those particular 5, why those were high priority?
These projects, are the topics we chose were actually, we talked with Vector, especially Larry Rogers, and we broke it down to what is the most effective, or which one they want the most as of right now compared to all 14. And these 5 were actually given to us, or actually we talked to him, and he told us that these are the ones that he would like to really cover. Of course, we had some of these already covered because they were on the beginning of that list. However, there was more he added to it. So these are actually given from Vectren. There was a proof from Vectren that these are the ones that are most important at this time if we're going to cover only 5.
The SCADA one was added because they were going to be hiring a new addition to their corporation in the SCADA department, and that was one reason that they wanted the SCADA to be added to this list.
Did I answer your question pretty
It
well?
helps.
This one is.
I noticed that the average time to complete was around 30 minutes. Is there a way to track the progress? That way, if you didn't have that full 30 minutes, say you were interrupted by work, that you could close out of the module and go back?
From our understanding, from talking with Larry Rogers, and the first week we talked, he showed us like what we typically have. They do time them, and that's why we actually put the questioning in there too, that stops so they don't click all the way through and just go to the very bottom, the end of the slide and finish in 15 seconds, you know. So they will be timed and trained, and from my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they can stop and go to work and then come back and finish, correct? During the training mode. So ours is just for the Microsoft PowerPoint, but when they're going to take this and actually put it on the online, and they'll have timers and things on that as well.
What's the number one thing that both of you took away from the project?
Well, for me, there was a lot of stuff, a lot of information, key information I didn't know about substations. So for me, it was safety, and even just walking into a substation area with all the grounding and how things are supposed to look. Because I did a lot for the grounding slide. I learned so much just from grounding yourself, make sure that everything works, and then from the videos you showed us of the potential hazards. That was one of the key things I took away from it.
For me, it would just be the amount of standards that are actually needed to create a safe working environment around substations.
You're talking about adding an additional person, you had the 2 of you, plus adding the third. How would you break down the work between those 3 people?
Very similar to the way we broke it down for us. We actually started and we broke it down to one of us taking a different topic and covering it, and then we would review it with each other. So we'd make sure all that was covered. So with that, with a third person added on, you'll be able to cover more of the topics. So we were only able to do 2 at a time, one for me, one for him, and then we would cover it, and then we'd do another one, and then we'll cover it. And that's typically how we did it. Now, there was some of them that had so much information on it, we just sat down and took together and went through it all. And I was looking at one reference material, and he was looking at another. So adding that third person, you could add so much more information to be gathered. And then you can break it down even more. So I guess the key thing would be the third person, having them there, and having, even an additional member at all would add more test modules to be completed in the time that we took. So and when we break that up, you can see that the timing and everything will be so much better. And there's a possibility that there is more that could be added to each of the modules, so the third person could have more ideas that we didn't have. So that might help in that too.
I'll add on to that. How do you think that third member would have impacted your expected costs?
It would have definitely added that. And we were going to do based off that, but you got to understand, we make 15, if we were to get paid, we'd make $15 an hour. So that would add on to that, and it'd be same amount of timing for all 3 of us. So whatever we put it, so we had 180 hours, that'd be another 180 hours added on that. So the cost would go up. It would go up a pretty good amount. But you would cover more. Because next semester, you think about, we did 2. If we would have had a third member, there wouldn't be as many topics to cover next semester. And for someone to complete, because it took us 5 for this whole semester to complete in the, 15 weeks? That we only completed 5, solid 5. So think about it, there's 9 more. They, just assuming what we have, they would only be able to complete 5, and there'll be 4 for the next one. So they would split it up. That'll be more members because you'll have 2 each year, considering that's what happened. So it'd actually be cheaper in the long run if we were getting paid.
This is a level 1 training module. Is there going to be a level 2 with other questions maybe for more experience?
Well, they're going to be the same because these are standard. Okay, these are standards, so these are going to be considered for everyone. And so the level-wise, it doesn't matter if you could be a senior engineer and you need to be up to date on your standards. And they can add it, see, that's the good thing about doing it on Microsoft PowerPoint. If there's standards that change, because it can happen, it happens every day, then they can add it onto that, and they can put it forth to that. But every engineer in the plant, or in the veteran, in that substation category would have to take these training modules, no matter which branch they are. It's part of, kind of like learnings that we'd have to do in other places of work.
This might be out of the scope of your project, but how are the continuing education credits tracked and registered to the governing body that keeps track of that sort of thing?
I'm not aware that is outside the scope. We just know that they will be offered for continuing education credits at Macron.
I believe it's something where they come to they be able to track it within the company itself. So for us to be able to track it, that would be us putting it online. But I think from my understanding, they would have ways of doing that. They would have